Welcome to the Scoliosis Research Society podcast. I'm Chris Hardesty, and I'm honored to host today's episode in recognition of Women's History Month. When we think about the history of spine surgery, we think about techniques and instrumentation and landmark discoveries that have changed patient care. But history is not only about what was done, it's about who was in the room when it happened. For much of modern surgical history, that room looked very different than it does today. Women entered surgical specialties and spine in particular under very different circumstances. The progress we've seen reflects not only cultural and institutional change, but persistence of those who've helped reshape the field. Today, I'm joined by Andy King and Karen Weissmann, members of the History Committee of the Scoliosis Research Society, and previous SRS President Serena S, to discuss how women have influenced the evolution of spine surgery, how our professional narrative has developed, and what the history suggests about the future. As spine surgeons, we plan for outcomes decades ahead, and examining our history asks us to do the same, to understand where we've been and to be intentional about where we're going. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So the first thing I want to do is ask some questions. When we look at the history of spine surgery, what was the professional landscape like for women entering the field previously?
So I actually had the experience of actually working with Jackie Perry. She was at Rancho. She'd stopped operating by the time I was there as a fellow, but she clearly was one of the game changers in orthopedic surgery and having women in orthopedic surgery. I wasn't fortunate enough to meet Ruth Jackson, who was the first woman actually who got into the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery did a residency. Thankfully, we have things that are named after those women now. The Ruth Jackson Society, which is for women surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, including medical students, and Jackie Perry, the Perry Initiative, which is about the pipeline and getting more women, even at a young age, before somebody can say they should do something else, for example. And that's really key, is get people influenced early. I was not fortunate enough to meet Dr. Deval-Pierre, but I know, Dr. King, you've actually done some background work onto her history and her contributions.
Yes, I did. It's very interesting. If you compare Madame Deval-Pierre and Jackie Perry, they were oceans away. They spoke different languages. But when you look at their bios, there are a lot of similarities. One I thought was that they started in the age of polio and had great empathy for people that had disabilities and polio, such as polio, muscular dystrophy, congenital abnormalities. Second thing I found that was very similar between the two was that they were very collaborative. They formed a lot of committees. They worked with a lot of other people to advance the science. They were not egocentrically driven, as themselves. They really saw the value of communication and groups. And yes.
Do you think those sort of collaborative efforts or working with others have helped you be successful in spine surgery?
I completely believe that collaboration is the key to success in spine surgery. I don't think you can be a successful spine clinician, surgeon, unless you also work closely with your colleagues. I mean, Jackie Perry she was a physical therapist first. And I think that gave her particular insight into how therapists and therapy could help patients with neuromuscular conditions. Now, as spine surgeons, we have to work with neurologists, anesthesiologists, ortho and neuro both do complex spine surgery. Hand therapy, neuromonitoring people, instrumentation people, biomechanics and things like that. So I think each individual of us cannot do it all. So to get the best minds, we need to be collaborative. So I totally agree.
Any additional thoughts on that, Dr. King?
Yes, the one other thing, when I look at the rise of women in spine surgery and orthopedic surgery in general, is one thing that sticks in my mind when I talked to some women at University of Colorado a couple of years back. And they said that having a sort of threshold, around 30% of the residents being women, was helpful to them. They said that being just the only one in the boys' club was a little bit of a hurdle to get over. So I think that now with more and more women in orthopedics in general, and probably spine surgery for sure, that things are a little easier, hopefully.
I have found that being collaborative with groups of women is very helpful, but being collaborative with anybody has been how I've advanced my career. And I don't know that that's necessarily specific to women, but certainly that's been true for a lot of the women I know. Their careers took off when they became part of multi-center study groups or found groups of people that they really connected to in professional networking.
Jackie Perry, I remember, said that she never felt gender was a factor in her career. I find that hard to believe, to tell you the truth, but I think that she was so passionate and driven that that was in the back seat a little for her. Did you feel that when you were with her?
It was kind of mixed. I mean, for the most part, it didn't affect my day-to-day life. But there were definitely times where it was noticed but sometimes it helped me. There were times that I was selected because they wanted to have more diversity. And there are other times that I was excluded because they wanted the good old boys club. Okay. And so in the end, I think it's been a positive experience. And so, we all take advantage of special characteristics we have. And so because it was sort of balanced, I had to get over feeling like it was bad to take advantage of being different. Because hopefully I was there because I was qualified. And I think in other instances it hurt me. So I think it balanced in the long run. And I do think going back to, and I do think of the collaborative part, when they look at leadership skills, one of the things that women are better at in leadership is they're more likely to be collaborative. And they've done studies on that or whatever. So that is something that I think we bring to our profession. And I think in doing so, we help others learn to be collaborative too.
Can I just add that as we made the bio on Madame Duval-Beaupère, that there was a homage from Jean Dubussy, but it was in French. And we were very lucky that Karen has spent a year in France as part of her training. Is that correct? And she translated that, which is now word for word in the biography. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's very clear from some of the women like Madame Duval-Beaupère and Wafascali or Virginie Lafage that they have been part of collaborative teams. And Jean Dubussy's words about Jeanette Duval-Beaupère really spoke to that collaboration and how much, even from the other side, it was appreciated. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next question, which is, are there any other early women in spine surgery whose contributions deserve more recognition?
I think going forward, there are a number. Our recent president of the SRS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Blakemore, Laura
Blakemore.
Maida.
Yes.
Min Mehta, for sure.
Min
Her
Mehta.
contributions cannot be underscored at all.
Well, Virginie Lafage, I think she's made an amazing contribution from being from another field, and I think that's quite important. That I think in research we have a lot of women that are maybe not doctors, and they're doing a lot of incredible research in spine surgery. So I think we have that.
Certainly, between all three of those women that we've mentioned, they've changed the way we think about scoliosis and therefore changed the way we treat.
Absolutely.
With much better outcomes for our patients.
And one other thing, being on this little committee at the Historical Committee, it's just been fascinating to me to see how people from all over the world come together. And did you mention Min Mehta from London?
Yep.
Who, of course, who has really pushed the casting of early onset scoliosis. I just learned that she went across to France and worked with Madame Duval-Beaupère and at the hospital over there. So that was very much an important part of her early start.
Very interesting. Some of what Madame Duval-Beaupre studied was growth velocity, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so that probably very much influenced men.
She was very interested in growth.
Yeah.
And she was the one who first showed that the spurt of growth, which occurs at close to menarche in women, is the time when the scoliosis gets worse. She first said it for neuromuscular scoliosis, and then she worked with Jean Dubuisset to see if it would also be applicable to adolescent idiopathic scoliosis.
Actually, Duval-Beaupre made this second analysis where she checked what happened after menopause. And she made this little curve that said that, the curves are going to increase, during a menarche, and they're going to stabilize for a while. And after menopause, they're also going to increase again. So she actually gave us an insight of what happens long-term with the scoliosis.
That's very good information.
Yes.
Okay. For all of you, how do you think the Scoliosis Research Society has evolved in terms of representation and leadership?
I think so. The SRS is interesting because we really do capture the women who do spine surgery, in a very good way, at least among the orthopedic surgeons, and we've gotten better with the neurosurgeons too, because spine is obviously includes peds and adult, as opposed to a lot of the other specialist societies in spine are mostly adult oriented. So, and I think women are probably a higher proportion of pedipod's than adult spine surgeons. But it helps get to that 30% that you mentioned, right? And there is something about kind of the tipping point where you don't feel different. You feel like you're just there because you're there. And so I think that's been an advantage that the SRS has compared to some of the other societies from that standpoint. Personally, I've been very lucky because I've had a number of mentors and sponsors who, I guess they were all men because they were all men, okay? But they've never looked at me and said, oh, you shouldn't do this. As a matter of fact, they were much more promoting me and, oh, you should do this, not you shouldn't do this. And that was very, very, nice to never feel like there was a barrier in there. So nobody ever said you shouldn't do this because you're a woman. It was always like, oh, you're a spine surgeon. You've done this. Now it's your turn to do this kind of thing. And I think that's been a very positive part of the society.
Do you remember any point in time where you looked around the room and went, there weren't a lot of women here before, and now I recognize that there are? Or has it just been a slow, steady, gradual increase?
I would say it's been very slow and steady. I used to actually sit in the back of the room and count how many women there were in the room. And it was so hard to find them because there were so few of them. Now you don't have to do that because they're in every row and everything like that. But that's how I used to do. I used to sit there and count, So yeah, it's been gradual. I think it's also been good because it's the number, it's not just numbers in the audience, it's also numbers on the podium. And I don't think anybody went out looking that way. I think it just organically happened that, women are spine surgeons, therefore women are doing the research and presenting. It wasn't about, oh, they're, somebody, they shouldn't be up there. So that just happened, I think, as part of being accepted in our society, which is a very positive thing.
Karen, what have you seen on a more international level?
I think things are changing a lot, and I think SRS has been a big part of that. I think a lot of women have that do scoli, and as Serena said, that they do peds. They start going to SRS, and I thought they saw all these women, and they saw these women, in leadership positions, and they thought maybe I can do the same in my country. And I've felt that a lot. A lot of girls have come to me and from different parts of Latin America and said, I saw you presenting an SRS, and I thought that was so cool. And I really want to be part of that. So I think things are changing, maybe a bit slower in certain parts of the world, but I think the influence of SRS has been quite important in that.
When we were on the traveling fellowship and we visited Paris, there was a day we were in the OR and all but one of the spine surgeons was female.
Really?
It was a great day. We were very excited to see it.
Which was the hospital?
That was Georges Pompidou.
Okay.
Yeah. So shout out to M. Ferrero and her team.
Yeah, Manon, yeah.
Yeah. What structural changes within the SRS do you think have had the most impact on inclusion?
That's a very good question. I think it's something that began organically. It wasn't, let's get more women in here. It was like, let's get more people involved. And getting more people involved meant there was a bigger field. You know, SRS expanded, became more international. You know, started including neurosurgeons. So it was a bigger group of people, and they all wanted to be involved. You know, there are definitely still people in the SRS that just attend the meetings and things like that. But there seems to be a very high proportion of SRS members that want to be speaking, that want to be in study groups, that want to be participating and asking questions or on a committee. And I think that speaks to the quality and the commitment of our members, but it also is, I think, how we started growing and becoming, you know, like you said, Karen, you're on the stage, somebody sees you, and it becomes, oh, I want to join the group that has women, you know, that are just there because they're talented. That it's not a token. It's just part of the way the culture is.
Yep.
And so you see women in committees and chairing committees and council chairs and presidents and things like that. And you can't get women in leadership unless they have experience leading or show qualities of leadership. Okay. And so SRS has enough avenues that, you know, somebody can be good in research and end up, you know, getting into leadership because of that. Somebody else might be better at communications. And, you know, so there's different ways, people have different talents. There's different ways to rise within SRS depending on your particular talents or interests or opportunities for that matter. And I think that's been really positive from the standpoint of making it so inclusive, I guess is the best term.
The few times I've gotten to kind of go behind the curtain at the SRS, I think there's an equal push toward inclusivity in all areas. How do we involve more neurosurgeons? How do we involve more people from outside the US? How do we involve more women or people who are underrepresented minorities? But there's still that equal commitment to quality. And those two things are driven together. So it's not one or the other. And I think that contributes greatly to our success.
So what you're saying, and I agree, is that there's less emphasis on gender and more just on passion and quality and that sort of thing, which is the end point that we should strive for, isn't it? Where gender really doesn't matter, but interest, passion, quality, ability, those are the things. And I personally feel strongly that in the last 10 years even, that we've made strides in that direction.
Has that been your experience, Karen?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think what people really like about SRS is how committed people are, you know, and how participative is. You can get there and do a lot of things. And I think the feeling about SRS is that it's really, really an international society. So when you go there, you meet people from all over the world with different ideas, and everybody's very welcome. And I think part of that is that it's a bit hard to get into SRS. I mean, there are a lot of spine societies where you just, you know, pay a fee and you're part of the society, but, you know, you have that feeling it's just because they want you to pay the fee. Here, it's not about the fee. It's about how much time you're willing to give the society, how much involvement you're willing to give. And I think that really reflects in the way people are willing to participate and yeah, you know, like because of that, a lot of people from different backgrounds are willing to be part of the society.
All right, I'm gonna look forward now. And this question is first for Dr. King, but then for anybody who wants to answer. What do you think the History Committee will be writing about 25 years from now? And what changes can we make today in order to make that our future history?
It's a very good question. Of course, we have a mandate to write about all the past presidents, but what I think is happening before our very eyes is that from being a very America-Canada centric society, it's become more a world society now. Scoliosis is seen in all races throughout the world. So there are people who are very interested in it, and I think I like to see the Scoliosis Research Society is drawing all those people in, and I think that will continue. And as I said before, I think that there will be representation mainly based on interest and hopefully gender will become less and less of a factor. I don't think we have to be proactive anymore, but we do need to have our guard out to see if any of the old guard are discouraging good people. Do you know what I mean? Based on gender. And if that happens, I think that's going to continue to happen to a certain extent. We need to get on it immediately. Do you think that's happening? Do you think?
I think there's fewer and fewer spine surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and neurosurgeons who specifically will tell a young person thinking about this field not to do it. But Chris, you said earlier, it's the people that don't know what we do that are more likely to discourage people interested in these fields. And so part of it is also just our visibility, in our communities and in our hospitals and in our medical schools to, make sure that it's not anybody who wants to, who's smart enough and wants to work hard enough and has reasonably good hand-eye coordination can be a spine surgeon, right? It's not just because you're a bro. That's definitely not the look. But it is sometimes people that push back, again, the people that don't know, right?
Well, idiopathic scoliosis, of course, is 8 to 10 times more common in young women than in men. And I do think that there's more of a interaction between young women and women surgeons, not always, but I do think that that's there. Interestingly, when I was chair at LSU, I found out that in terms of high school sports, women now transcend men in sports. And so we found that a woman sports medicine doctor worked better with those people. So I tried to hire one for that reason. So perhaps with AIS, with adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, I think there will be a trend, for more women, for it to be more female-centric than, which would be natural. Huh? You agree? Yeah.
I think it would be great in 25 years, and we're going to be writing like, do you know this guy 25 years ago used to open people up to fix scoliosis? I really hope we get to that point where we can actually, with all this data we're gathering and with AI, find the solution of why scoliosis happens, and we have, a possibility of treating just before we need to reach, surgery. And it's not great for us, but I think 25 years from now, I really hope to be the one writing, that for the Historic Committee.
There will always be spine trauma, Karen. There will always be spine trauma. Oh, man. All right. We're on the tail end of this podcast. I'm going to ask a couple rapid fire questions. And so you're just going to give very short answers. The first one is, what is one word to describe the future of women in spine surgery?
Exciting.
Promising.
Evolving.
Great. Who's a historical figure in medicine who inspires you?
I have to say, two, Jackie Perry and Madame Ginette Duval-Bapere.
That's such a hard question. I could list like 5 people.
Go for it.
Everybody from Jackie Perry to my mentor, David Bradford, to a guy who's just a writer, Lewis Thomas, who was a great writer and he brought medicine to lay people, which I think is something that we could do better. Trying to think of who else. No, those are probably the main people.
Dr. Weissmann?
I would say Eloisa Diaz, which was the first, female doctor in Chile, and she went through a lot of things to get there. Well, Virginie Lafage, who was my mentor in my thesis, and I really respect her. And wow, so many people. I would say Larry Lenke. I mean, the work he's done has been really amazing and quite inspiring when I was starting spine surgery.
All right. And last but not least, one change you'd implement tomorrow if you could.
I would have one of those things they have on Star Trek, or a tricorder, and you just wave it over the patient, and they would be perfect and done, and they'd have no postoperative pain or complications. How's that?
Mine is a bit more pragmatic, perhaps. I love doing spine surgery, and as we all do here, but to this day, I think we have to do better at bracing and stopping the progression of scoliosis when we pick it up early. And to me, I just think the conservative treatment of scoliosis needs to take a leap or a bound.
Yeah, for me, it's more public health. I think access to public health care should be easier so we can have early detection of scoliosis. So I think educating people about it, and but especially, in lots of countries, just the access to a doctor.
That would have been mine. I just came back from a region of the world where access to care is not great. And some of the curves were so big because it took so long for the patients to be able to see anyone. And that's not fair to children. So I'm with you. I think better access to care is huge, or awareness.
And you can get a better brace to treat them earlier.
Pardon?
And you'll get the better brace to treat them earlier and better.
Yes, and perhaps even biological solutions that are coming out. I just heard that there's now a biological treatment for achondroplasia, which I never knew about. So, yeah, I think it's an exciting time with new biological studies, and I would like to see it applied to scoliosis, which I think it will be.
Well, I'd like to thank our guests, Dr. Andrew King, Dr. Serena Hu, and Dr. Karen Weissmann. I'd like to thank the Historical Committee of the SRS for their time today and for all the great information we've learned, all the new stories we've gotten. And I want to remind everyone that committee applications are open now. And if you want to join an exciting committee like the History Committee, get your applications in.
Podcast.
Oh, that's right. And the podcast committee. Please forgive me, Grant. Everybody have a great day.